Hello, you haven't met me, but my name is Phil. I work with Matter on several modules with KSA. I would love to have been with you today, but I can't because I'm busy doing something else. However, what I have been able to do is bring everything that I know together into an off-the-cuff lecture to you all here in regards to IP, intellectual property. So, as I say, my name is Phil. Previous and a different life to my time here at Kingston School of Art, Kingston University, I ran a production and a post-production company in Soho. We were there for 12 years. It was all very exciting, and before that I worked at the BBC. But with my time at Pogo Films, I was dealing a lot with intellectual property, and I wanted to talk to you about a couple of instances where we dealt with IP on a very direct basis. One of the ones I shall be talking about, one of the instances I shall be discussing with you, is a company that we set up called Moods 3D. This was a part of Pogo Films, but it was under the umbrella of Pogo Films. Moods 3D was orientated around generating and producing stereoscopic 3D content. Do you remember stereo 3D? Everyone had glasses. Everyone was rather hoping they'd get used to glasses, or that the technology would improve and you'd no longer need glasses. Unfortunately, that didn't happen quick enough. And so as stereoscopic 3D died, sadly, so did Pogo Films. So I shall be talking a bit about Moods 3D and the intellectual property around that, and I shall also be talking to you about another area of intellectual property that we dealt with, and that was for an SEIS scheme, a Seed Enterprise Initiative scheme we set up called Sharp Stories, which is fairly involved, but I shall tell you about that because it involves intellectual property in several different places and with several different people. So I hope it's vaguely interesting, and yeah. So let's start with Moods 3D. Now, Moods 3D, as I said, was a company that we set up to produce and sell stereoscopic 3D television and film content. We needed to have a new company name, or umbrella company name, Moods 3D. We needed to have a new logo. And because we were selling physical goods, which were Blu-ray and DVD discs, we wanted to be able to trademark our logo. And the reason is, when you're actually physically selling a product rather than supplying a service, it becomes all the more important to register your trademark, register your logo as being yours, because it's more likely to be, shall we say, stolen, okay? Used by other people and masquerading as your company. So you need to prevent that happening by registering a trademark. So what you do with that is you need to go and log and register it with the Intellectual Properties Office. Now, first of all, you've got to make sure that the logo makes sense to you. So Moods 3D was designed in a particular way. It's got Moods and then a big S and 3D. We like that because the big S meant stereoscopic 3D. So it was all sort of fairly well thought out. It's a very easy logo. And that can have complications in terms of making sure nobody else has a logo like it. But that's actually what the IPO do, the Intellectual Property Office. So you apply for your trademark, you send them your artwork, you tell them the kind of business you're working in, and they will go off and they will search through similar businesses or similar logos, similar words, and make sure that there isn't a clash between the logo that you're trying to trademark and an already existing logo. So this is a form of intellectual property that really is at the core of lots of businesses, and that's trademarking as a whole. Once the IPOs say, fine, there's nothing else like you in the world, and there certainly wasn't, then you're able to trademark, and it's not an expensive process getting the trademark put through. You are able to trademark your logo. You can tell when a logo has been trademarked, and you will have seen this many times without necessarily taking it in, is that around the bottom of the logo, very often to the bottom right, there'll be two tiny little black letters, T and M, which stands for trademarked. Have a look for them. Have a look when you buy anything. You'll have a look at the logo, see if you can see a TM trademarking indicator, which tells people that that logo has been trademarked and that do not steal, it belongs to someone else, okay? It is their intellectual property. And that is the story of Moods 3D. You may be interested to know that we existed for I think about 3 years selling 3D, stereoscopic 3D Blu-rays, and then sadly with the decline of stereoscopic 3D, that company and Pogo also went down. But if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be with you today telling you about intellectual property. Thank you. Hello, me again, back for more. Right, I wanted to, I may not have gone away actually, it depends on how we run the lecture. But let's assume that there was a brief pause and I am back with you now. I want to tell you about another instance where intellectual property and I have rubbed shoulders on the professional stage. The company I'm talking about this time was another company we were starting up. As it happens, we didn't start it up in the end for various financial reasons. It's all about finance. This was a company called Sharp Stories. Sharp Stories was actually an SEIS scheme. SEIS stands for Seed Enterprise Initiative Scheme. EIS's, Enterprise Initiative Schemes, were set up a long time ago, probably 10, 15 years ago now. They were set up with the premise of providing a special purpose vehicle for a company to come into existence and receive finance to produce whatever it was they were producing. It didn't necessarily be film or television, it could be absolutely anything. It was an entrepreneurial exercise on behalf of the government. Seed Enterprise Initiative Schemes were set up to produce set up to create, find, source and bring in development finance to get an idea off the ground so it could go on to become part of the Enterprise Initiative Scheme. So the sums of money were smaller, but they were very useful because they would help a company exist. Blah, blah, blah. All about me. Anyway, Sharp Stories. We set up this SEIS scheme. It was going to be a development scheme for feature films. So we had a slate of 3 films, sometimes 5, it depends on who we approached. And we were looking for development finance for those films, which at the time, 7, 8 years ago, 8, 9 years ago, was about £50,000 per film just to get development underway. These are quite small sums, believe it or not. So the writing development finance would be about 15, 20, 25,000 at the most, split between the writer and any script doctor that worked with them. And then the rest would be for the producer to start sourcing directors, talent, locations, all that sort of thing. But the actual intellectual property element of it was, of course, to do with the writer and the development of the writer's project and the writer's script. So the IP was brought into the SEIS scheme, Sharp Stories, by ourselves, and the writer always owns the rights, but we were effectively buying the right to find finance for it on their behalf, and we would then take that money back from final production. So once it leaves development finance, when all the money's been brought in and all the money's been spent on each of the individual development packages for those films, then we would sell those films on to producers. The producers would make those films, but they would pay us back the development finance plus a share of money. The intellectual property at all times stays with the writer. All we are doing is investing and selling on the surrounding development package to a producing company so that they don't have to develop the scripts themselves. They are effectively walking into a pre-prepared production ready to go, just needs the production finance around it. That's all it needs, a couple of million, nothing. Anyway, so we had 3 films, one of which was mine, which was Kung Fu Kilts. one from Danny Hiller, and one from a friend of ours, Tracy. So those 3 films were set up. The intellectual property was owned by them. I still own the rights to Kung Fu Kilts, and fingers crossed that's going somewhere at the moment. But there was one other element of intellectual property bound up with all of this, and that was the Sharp Stories logo. Took a fair amount of thinking and development, and we were trademarking that logo as well. Once you've got a logo that works, you've got a typeface that works, you've got the colour scheme that works, all of these things effectively are bound into the intellectual property of the trademark. And as you go forward, as you establish a logo and branding for your company, those things travel with you. So the colour scheme and everything, you form a brand Bible, and that's what designers work to. But the key thing is that you have trademarked your logo. This offers you some security in using that logo, using that name as your own intellectual property as your company moves forward. I hope that was vaguely useful. I will see you again, I am sure. Thank you.